Welcome back. My name is Brijesh, and today we are going to start with the chapter number 4 of Class 8 History, Tribals, Dikus, and the Vision of the Golden Age. So, in this particular chapter, we will understand that how, after having the control on the vast areas of the Indian subcontinent, the Britishers started to occupy or started to infringe in the cultures of the tribals, and how they started to dominate their areas. Okay, and they control the area, forested area, which was a lifeline for these tribals, and how they interfere in the culture of these people. And after getting frustrated because all these activities, how these tribes revolts against the British rule. So we will understand these developments and who were the Dikus and what was the impact which was getting on these tribals because of the introduction of the new system which was introduced by the Britishers. So let us understand. So first of all, it is providing us the information about Birsa. That who was Birsa? So sometimes the complete name has been provided as the Birsa Munda and also known as the Birsa Munda, the god. Okay. So Birsa was used to belong from the Chota Nagpur in Jharkhand. He himself declared that God has appointed him to save the people from trouble and free them from the slavery of Dikus. So now we have understood this term, that who were the Dikus? Dikus were the outsiders. Okay. So who came to the forests in which these tribes or these tribal people were living. Okay. So Birsa was born in family of Mullas. In followers included other tribes of the region such as Santals and the Orons. So understand, if somebody is getting trouble because of the introduction of the new system, and whenever the interest of the people are related, then what happens, that other people who are also facing the same issues, they come together because their interests are matching. Now when it comes to the interest of these people, what they did, they started to following the voice of the Birsa because he was raising the revolt against these Britishers. Okay, so the followers of Birsa not only from the Chotanagpur or from the Munda tribes, but also the Santals and the Orons also started to follow. Okay, so at the right hand side at the box, an information has been provided. So Dongaria Kond tribe relates to or belongs to Odisha. So this type of information which has been provided here and there, so this becomes important because sometimes straightforward questions comes in the match the following type of questions, where it can be asked as Dongaria Kond belongs to which particular state of India. So hence I have provided such type of information in this particular chapter. So pay close attention, and I will emphasize enough so that you would be able to understand. So now let us understand that who were the Dikus. Okay, so we will understand more details about these people who were the outsiders and why they came to the forest or where these tribes were living. What was happening to the tribal people under the British? We will understand all this particular question as well. The tribes society laws. So earlier, but we have seen that how the tribes reside in these forests and they have their distinct culture and they follow the animism, which means they have their own religion and they worship the trees and the sacred groups, all these things. Okay, they have different customs and rituals. Okay, that are very different from the mainland of the India, and there is no sharp division, such division which we see as in the mainland of India, such behalf of caste or on the language. There was no such division in the tribes. Okay, so these are the basic characteristics of these tribes. So how did tribal give these groups lived? So some different characteristics have been provided, that how they used to live. That some were the Jhum cultivators. Okay, so what is the term Jhum refers to? Will let us understand. Some of them practice, who these tribes people practice Jhum cultivation, that is shifting cultivation. So this information relates to Jhum becomes important. Try to remember this. In this particular method, what happens, that these tribe people burn the vegetation on the land and clear it for cultivation. They spread the ash of the firing and which contain the potash to fertilize the soil. So remember that after burning all these vegetation, what they get out of this ash of the firing, these vegetation, it used to contain the potash. So remember this. Okay, so it provides some nutrients which is required for the these whatever they used to grow on those particular patches of the land, okay, which they were burning and they were utilizing for cultivation. So shifting cultivators were found in the hilly and the forested tract of the northeast and the central India. So this question can be asked, in which all areas we see the jhum cultivation. So jhum cultivation can be seen in the hilly area, okay, and also in the central India. So at the left hand side, some information, important information has been provided. So I'm referring to this particular box. So here it has provided the information such as fallow. What is a fallow? Fallow is a field left uncultivated for a while so that the soil recovers the fertility. So we understand that whenever we cultivate or the farmers cultivate a particular patch of land continuously, then the soil start to lose the fertility. In order to maintain or keep the fertility of that particular land, what they used to do, that they used to keep it without any cultivation, okay, and it is used to called as the fallow land. Okay, so apart from fallow, it has provided the information about sal. Sal was a tree, and mahua is also a tree, a flower that is eaten or used to make the alcohol. Okay, so let us move ahead. So some were hunters and the gatherers as well. So we have seen that they used to do this jhum cultivation. Apart from that, some of them were the hunters and gatherers. So in the initial chapters of the class 6 and 7th, we have understood who were the hunters and gatherers. So let us also get some more information on that. In many regions, tribal groups lived by hunting animals and gathering the forest produce. They cooked food with the oil they extracted from the seed of sal and mahua. So apart from these sal and mahua, they were using for the mahua flowers were using for the alcohol making, but also they were extracting the oil from them and they used to use it for the cooking purposes. Okay, so remember this. So kusum and palash flowers they used to for the coloring the clothes and the leather as well. So remember the all the important trees and the flowers which we are referring. So here we have talked about the kusum and the palash flower. Okay, this map is really important. Okay, so try to remember that which all tribes are residing in which part of the different area of the India, okay, or in which state. Okay, so here it has provided information such as the Gaddis, Bangujars, Bhotiyas, okay, Shahriya, Bhils. So these are the important tribes which were residing or which are residing in the different part of the India. So it plays an important role. So try to remember this particular map. Let us move ahead. So Baigals of the central India were reluctant to do work for others. So they never wanted to work for any other person. Okay, why? It was below the dignity of Baiga to become a laborer. So they did not consider it to be good. Hence, they were very much reluctant to do work for the any other person or for the Britishers. So tribal group often needed to buy and sell in order to be able to get the goods that were not produced within the locality. Okay, so this led to the dependence on the traders and the money lenders. So now we will understand these are the characteristics of basic information has been provided that how the outsider invaded these forests where these tribes were residing, okay, and how they got these innocent people in their trap. Okay, so these traders came around with the things for the sale and sold the goods at high prices. Moneylenders gave loans which were the tribal met their cash needs, addition to what they earned. Okay, but the interest charged on the loans was very high. So far, the tribal market and the commerce often meet debt and the poverty. So understand what they used to do. These people who were coming from the outside, so they used to lend the money to these tribesmen. Okay, and the interest rate was so high that they were not able to repay neither the interest nor the principal amount. So what was happening that they started to there was huge debt on their head. Now they initially tried to these people who were coming to these forests. They started to do such type of things so that they come under the debt of these people, and hence they can exploit them. Okay, so and after they before came and see the moneylenders and trader as the evil outsider and cause of their misery. So once they have gone into the debts, okay, there was huge debt which has been accumulated on their heads. And now if somebody has given the money or has lended the money, now they can ask them to work for free as well. Okay, they can ask them for any type of work, to cut down the trees or to do the begar or the forced labor as well. So they started to feeling that these people are not good, okay, for their community, and hence they started to consider them as the evil people. Okay, so understand. So hence they used to call them as the Diku. Okay, so some herds the animals. So what type of different works they were doing? So still we are talking about that. The some of them used to herd the animals. So many tribes groups lived by herding and rearing the animals. Okay, when the grass in the on the place were exhausted, or on the areas where they were living, the grasses were not sufficient. Okay, in terms of in summers. Okay, if the grasslands are really scanty, then what they used to do, that these people who were rearing or who were herding these cattle, they used to move to the other areas or in the hilly areas. What used to happen, that in those areas the ice used to melt, and hence used to provide the very good grasslands for their cattle. Okay, so the one Gujars of the Punjab hills, they and the Lawadis of the Andhra Pradesh were the cattle herders, and the Gaddis of Kullu were the shepherds, and the Bakrawals of Kashmir were the goats. So understand, I have already colored them in different colors, so it would be easy to understand and to get the information about the separate tribes, such as Van Gujars, they used to belong from the Punjab hills, and the Lawadis from the Andhra Pradesh were the cattle herders, whereas the Gaddis from Kullu, and they were the shepherds, whereas the Bakarwals of the Kashmir were the goats. So remember this. Okay, so I have mentioned, I have highlighted this particular name, Warrior Elvin, a British anthropologist. So he was also a part of, or played an important role when Nehru was forming the policy and wanted to understand that how to assimilate these tribal people in the mainland India. So he sought the idea or took the suggestion from the this particular anthropologist, that whether we should include the tribes people. Okay, Alvin Warrior, to whether we should include the tribes people in the mainland India, or we should leave them as they are. Okay, so it was suggested by the Alvin Warrior that rather than including them in the mainland of India, because what would happen, that once they will be assimilated or they will be included in the mainland India, so these people who are residing in these areas in the central parts, they start to move into these areas, the forested land, and they might infringe in the different type of things, their culture, their religion. Okay, so it would be not good for for the growth of these tribesmen. Hence they should leave as they are, and by the time they will grow. So this was the important suggestion was given by the Alvin Warrior. Remember this. So here at the right hand side, important information has been given about the beaver. So what is beaver? A term used in the Madhya Pradesh for the shifting cultivation. So we have already seen about that the jhum cultivation. Okay, in the Madhya Pradesh is called as the beaver. Remember this. So the Mundas of the Chota Nagpur, the land belonged to the clan as a whole. All the members of the clan were regarded as the descendant of the original settler who had first cleared the land. Therefore, all of them had the rights on the land. So this was the basic understanding of these tribesmen, that once they have cleared any forest or any patch of land, so it used to belong them, and all those people who were belonging to that particular community, or it was a type of hereditary succession. Okay, so this type of the characteristic was prevailing in that time, or not that time, in that particular area where these tribesmen were residing. Okay, so the British officials saw, so what British always wanted to do, that British always wanted to have the settled proper areas where from where they could gain the revenue. How? they used to tax the farmers. Now when these people are the these people used to practice the jhum cultivation. So jhum cannot be done by being at one place. They used to shift from the one place to another place, hence it was difficult to find them in the next year, okay, or after 6 or 7 months. So it was really difficult for them to, for the Britishers to find these people and to tax them. And now this was, and these Britishers wanted to have the revenue in at any cost. So what they wanted to practice, they wanted them to be settled down, and they wanted them to practice the settled agriculture rather than shifting agriculture. Okay, so understand. So British officials saw these settled tribes groups like the Gonds, Santals are more civilized than hunter-gatherers of the shifting cultivators. So they also bifurcated, or they created a gulf, clear-cut gulf, and that they considered some of the tribes as the more civilized than the other tribes, such as the Gonds and Santhal. According to them, the more civilized than the other tribes who were the hunters and the gatherers. Okay, what happened to the tribes chief? So before the arrival of the British, so understand that in a particular area where there are the tribesmen, there should be some rules and regulation, and there should be some person who would be they used to consider as the chief, and that particular person must have had the sufficient amount of power for the administration and for the suggestion and for the different things. But after when the British came to these forests, they started to control their habits and these other things. So they must have infringed on their culture, their, and also must have some sort of influence on these tribesmen as well and the chiefs as well. Okay, so what type of influence and what type of characteristic or what type of changes were introduced, let us understand. So before the arrival of the British, in many areas the tribal chiefs were important people. They had the economic power, administrative control on their territory. They also had their own police, decided on the local rules and laws and lands and forest management. Okay, so under the British rule, the functions and the powers of the tribal chief changed considerably. They were allowed to keep their land and the titles over a cluster of villages and rent out the lands, but they lost much of their administrative power and were forced to follow the rules and laws made by the British officials in India. Because from the beginning, when Britishers used to consider the mainland Indian as the uncivilized, then when they went into these forests and looked at the tribesmen, definitely they must have thought the very different image about these tribesmen, that how uncivilized these people are, when the mainland Indians are so uncivilized that these people are much more uncivilized than them as well. So they always created such type of thinking and this type of gulf. Okay, but they never valued the culture which they inherited from their ancestors, and we value the culture of the tribes people because we understand that how they live and this is their way of living, and no culture is bad. Okay, so but Britishers did not value the Indian cultures and the cultures of the people who were residing in the different part of the forest or different part of the Indian subcontinent. So it was their thought process, hence they imposed their rules and regulations and asked these people to follow their rules and regulations. Okay, so these people had to pay the tribute to the Britishers and discipline the tribes group on the behalf of the British. So these were the tasks given to the chiefs. Now this particular chief who was regulating and they had their own laws rather than what they started to doing, now they lost all these powers. Instead of, they were given the power to to collect the tribute and provide this tribute to the Britishers and discipline their own people. Whenever they were unable to fulfill these things, then there were the harsh measures they used to follow. Okay, at the right hand side, an information has been provided about the Nisi tribe. So these Nisi tribe people used to live in the Arunachal Pradesh, and also today also we see that the Nisi tribes belongs to Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, so what happened to the shifting cultivators? The British were uncomfortable with the groups who moved and they not have the fixed home. So we have understood that why it used to frustrate them, because they were not able to tax them. and Britishers always wanted to tax these people, okay, to increase their revenue. At the left hand side, I have also provided some information about the Bhil. They used to belong to the Gujarat, and Bhil is also found in the region of the northwestern part of the Rajasthan as well. Okay, so when you will read about the history of Mewar, then you will come across that how these Bhil tribes or these Bhil, the people of the Bhil community, how they had the Maharana Pratap. Okay, so remember this. So settled peasants were easier to control the administration, and the British wanted to regular revenue source for the state. So this was the thing which we were discussing, that why they always wanted to have the settled type of arrangement rather than the shifting cultivation. So they introduced the land settlement. So here also they tried their famous known ways of set the arrangements, such as the land settlements and all these things. That is why they measured the land, they defined the rights of each individual to that land, and fixed the revenue demand for the state. Some peasants were declared landowners and others as the teenage. So here also they started to doing what type of thing? They started to divide the people on the behalf of ownership. Okay, they consider some people as the landowners and other as the tenants. The tenants were to pay the rent to the landowner, who in turn paid the revenue to the state. So all in all, the purpose of these Britishers was to collect the revenue, and they never valued the culture of these tribes people. Okay, and always created the gulf between them as well. Okay, so forest laws and their impact, that how these things impacted. Okay, so the changes in the forest law had a considerable effect on the tribal life. The British extended their control over the all forest and declared the forest for the state property. Now understand that these tribesmen were living in these forests from their ancestors and the time immemorial. But what these Britishers did when they came in these forests, they proclaimed that the forest belongs to the state. Now think about the people who were living and who were living in these forests, and these forests were the home for them. They must have felt very bad about it. Okay, so some forests were classified as the reserve forest, and for they produced timber, which was the British wanted. Why British wanted to have the timbers? Because they, after which we have already seen in the previous chapter as well, that with the industrialization, what started to happen, that after having the India as a colony, and British was also converted into, like, they were getting the industrialization at a fast rate. Okay, the people in their homeland in the Britain were getting rich. Now they wanted to invest this amount somewhere, so they looked at the India, that India is a good place. Okay, and where they, by having the development in these places, what they can do, they can move, such as they started to having the rail lines in the across the India. Okay, and for that they needed timber, right? And for timbers they needed forests, and the people who were getting rich, they needed to invest somewhere, so they invested in this particular part in India. Okay, so these things all were related, all these things were related, and hence it also provided a easiest way. Once they will develop all these things, then the movement of the things would be easy. These people, the Britishers, could move their troops easily. They can collect the forest things and the raw materials very easily, and can move their raw product from one area to the other area quite easily. Okay. So all these things were in favor of the British. So they had the proper understanding and proper plan for this, and they, how they in order to achieve their this particular goal, how they use the tribal people. Let us understand further that after classifying the reserve forest and the to produce the timbers, what they did. But once the British stopped the tribal people from living inside the forest, they faced a problem. What type of problem? From where would the forest department get its labor and cut trees for railway sleepers and transport logs? So we have already understand that whenever they used to these Dikus or the money lenders used to provide them money, and after having the debt, they used to work as the bonded laborers, and whatever the work these people wanted them to do, they used to do, right? So once after the Britishers followed this policy of that these people are not allowed to enter in the forest, and hence they faced this problem that who will cut these trees for free. So they also devised the method for that. What method? Let us look. So colonial official came up to the solution that they decided that they would give jhum cultivators small patches of land in forest and allow them to cultivate these land on the condition that those who lived in the village would have to provide labor to the forest department and look after the forest. So now the land which used to belong to the tribes, now they were giving them land, a small patch of land, in exchange that you will live here and you will cut down the trees for them for free if they want to live in the forest. So these were the conditions put in front of these tribe people. So understand the pain of these communities who were living in these forests. Okay, so they disobeyed. So now what was happening, that after a certain time of period when they felt that they have been exploited sufficiently, so these people disobeyed. Who? These tribesmen disobeyed the new rulers, and they continued with the practice that they declared illegal, at times rose in upon the in open rebellion. Such was the revolt of the Songram Sangma. Remember this, Songram Sangma was a revolt which happened in Assam in 1906, and the forest satyagraha of 1930 in the central province. So two important information has been provided, that Songram Sangma revolt happened in Assam in 1906 and forest satyagraha happened in 1930 in central province. So remember this. So of course after having so much pain, so these people revolted. So Hazaribagh in present day Jharkhand was an area where the Santals reared the cocoons. Okay, so these traders were there, and traders have their agents. They gave the loans to the tribals, which we have already understood, and they used to pay on very small amounts such as 3 or 4 rupees for 1,000 cocoons. So these were then exported to the Burdwan or the Gaya, where they were sold at the 5 times of the price. For an example, if they paid 4 rupees or 3 rupees for the 1,000 cocoons, now they are exporting to these places, Gaya or the other places, where they used to send at the 5 times the cost of this they collected. So they used to make the huge profit. Okay, the silk growers earning was very little, and understandably many tribes groups saw the market and the traders as their main enemies, because they now they understood that these people are exploiting and they themselves are making huge profit, but they are giving very small, very meager amount to these people. Okay, so they rose in the revolt as well. So these were the basic characteristic which was happening. A closer look, the Coal Rebellion in 1831 and 32, Santhal rose in the revolt in 1855. So Coal rebelled in 1831 to 32, Santhal rose in the revolt in 1855. Bastar rebellion in central broke down in 1910, and Warli revolt in Maharashtra happened in 1940. The movement that Birsa led was one of the such movements. So all these movements which happened because of the exploitation of the Britishers, I have already colored them different colors. Coles rebelled in 1831 to 32, Santhal 1855, Bastar rebellion in 1910, and the Warli revolt in Maharashtra 1940. Okay, so now we will understand the story of Birsa Munda. So Birsa was born in mid 1870. Birsa heard the tales of the Mundas uprising and the past, and saw these Sirdars or the leaders of the community urging the people to revolt. Okay, so he was going listening all these stories, the glory of the past. Okay, so their land, mulk ki ladai. Okay, so remaining the people of the need to win back their kingdom because they were hugely exploited. Okay, so Birsa went to local missionary school. So it is talking about the different type of education he took. Okay, he went to the local missionary school, so he got some ideas from the missionary schools as well. Okay, what was good, what was bad. Later, Birsa also spent some time in company of the prominent Vaishnav preachers. Okay, he wrote the sacred threads as well. So he asked the Mundas to give up the drinking liquors, clean their village, and stop believing in the witchcraft and sorcery. So understand that after having the different type of understanding from the Christianity, from the Hinduists, Vaishnavites. Okay, so he just requested from the people of his tribe that stop drinking the liquor, okay, and clean the village and stop believing in the witchcraft. So Birsa also turned against the missionaries and Hindu landlords. Why? He saw them as the outsider forces that were ruining the Munda way of life. It means they were exploiting, or he saw that this might infringe in the religious practices which they were following. Okay, hence there was always a threat. In 1895, Birsa asked his followers to recover their glorious past. He talked of a golden age in the past, okay, Satyug, the age of truth. He was talking about this, and he wanted the people to revolt for the this particular Satyug, and for the just we saw that Mulk ki Ladai. Okay, the Birsa movement for it wanted to drive out the missionaries, moneylenders, Hindu landlords, so all to whom he wanted to go out from their places. So he wanted these missionaries, moneylenders, Hindu landlords, and the government to set up the Munda Raj. Okay, and with the Birsa Munda at its head. So after, what was his thinking? That after removing all these people, okay, there would be set up a government would be there, okay, and set up a Munda Raj with the Birsa at its head. Understood? So British official decided to act. They arrested the Birsa in 1895 because these Britishers saw him as the threat, okay, and convicted him on the charges of rioting and jailed him for 2 years. When Birsa was released in 1897, he began to touring the villages to gather the support, urging the people to destroy the Ravana. Who were the Ravana? Dikus and the European, and establish a kingdom under his leadership. Okay, so Birsa Raj. So Birsa's followers began to targeting the symbol of Dikus and European powers. They attacked the police stations and the churches, all these places which he talked that should be removed from the land of the Birsas. They started to attack, okay, and raided the property of the moneylenders and the jamidars. They raised the white flag as a symbol of Birsa Raj. So remember this. What was the symbol of Birsa Raj? A white flag. Remember this. This could be a very good question for the prelims exam. That what was the symbol of the Birsa Raj? The symbol was the white flag. In 1900, the Birsa died, okay, due to cholera, and the movement faded out. The movement was significant in two ways. How? First one is force the colonial government to introduce the laws so that the land of the tribal could not be easily taken over by the Dikus. Okay. So first, this was the change. Second, it showed once again that the tribal people had the capacity to protest against the injustice and express their anger against the colonial rule. So in two ways, this particular movement was very prominent. Okay, so that nobody could take control of the lands of the tribals, and second, that they can agitate. So in this particular chapter, we have come across the really important facts, okay, interesting fact as well. So remember all these dates which are important, different tribal movements, and all these tribes which are residing in the different parts. Okay, so we have also seen the transhumans, that the people who are moving from the land to the upper hills in the summers for the rearing and herding the cattle. Okay, so all these things and the different characteristics which made trouble for these tribal people. We have also seen that how Alvin Warrior was an important figure for the Indian history, and how he suggested an important thing for these tribal people. Okay, understood about the important flowers. So remember all these things, okay, and keep on revising and keep on learning. I will see you in the next chapter. Till then, Jai Hind.